Hey everyone, my name's Yvonne Villarreal. I'm a reporter here at the LA Times. And for nearly 5 seasons straight, our guest today, uh, you're looking at me like, what? For nearly 5 seasons straight, our guest today played Will Gardner, the passionate, risk-taking lawyer on The Good Wife. And I say nearly 5 seasons straight because he went and died on us.
I know.
Why?
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Yeah.
Hashtag R.I.P. Will Gardner.
Will Gardner. How often are people like coming up to you and just saying why?
I guess that's happened a few times, but often more people are just coming back saying were sad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is that people say, they're really sad about it, but they're also really excited about where the show's going.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me happy because that was the whole intent of, I think, this season was, we knew going into this season this would be my last. But by having these 15 or 16 episodes, we were all really able to plan for it and structure it and kind of knew it was in sight and also knew where it would lead the show. So I'm excited about where the show's going and was really proud to be a part of it. But most people just come up and they're sad, New Yorkers are great, they grab you on the subway, they'll tell you, they won't hold anything back. There's no space that people feel like they can't cross. They'll just, why?
Yes. Well, before we jump into a lot about the death scene, let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the season. And a few episodes into it, we got Hitting the Fan, which was like an epic episode. And I remember they did a screening for reporters, and it was just like mouths gaping, and everyone was talking about how it sort of livened the season, like the show up again, because I know it's heading into 5 seasons, things can start to
hit
feel
a plateau.
Like,
absolutely. It did. The whole season, especially the first part of the season did feel like that. Was so re-energized. I think it started at the end of last season, just the idea of that the Kings had of, when they saw the episode last year called Red Team, Blue Team, and we were all on opposite sides. I think that was when the light bulb went off that this could be something there. And so they started at the end of the year with Alicia deciding to leave with Carrie to start their own firm. So what I think really helped us with that is, that ends the season, and then the audience has the whole off season to think about it. And then the season began this year, really soon after that. So they're still working for us, plotting it, while the audience has had all these months to sit with it and then watch characters doing things that other characters don't know, yet the audience does. And I think that structure-wise was very rewarding to watch, so that you watch for 4 episodes, and at 4 you start to see Diane figure it out, and then in 5, Diane has figured it out, and the episode begins and tells Will. So I think that created such great conflict, such great complexity and drama. So it was like that. I mean, I'm glad to hear that when you all watched it, people's mouths were open, because when we all read the script, we just knew we had something special. That, the writers always do a great job on the show, but that script in particular just rocked me. I just felt it was such a fine piece of writing. Kind of what I'm saying about all the structuring of everything coming together, and the long structure of that, and building towards that, and then just reading the script itself, everything about it. It had comedy, drama, it just, every little moment, I don't know, it combined the two tonally really well. I thought it was one of the best hours of television I had ever read, and John Hickey and I were talking about it on the van to shoot one day, and just saying this was one of the best hours scripts I've ever read. Well, and I was very proud to be a part of it, and I'm glad that the episode turned out well.
Well, you talk about how the audience is sort of in the know of what's going on, and you as the actor is also in the know. So when it's time to be Will and be in that moment when Diane comes into your office and says Alicia's leaving, and where it takes like how many times for her to say it to process for you, like, is it hard to play that, or does it come easy?
That was great to play. That you always want stuff like that. And this year I felt like they gave me a lot of great, complex, rich material to play, and I was really honored about that. What happens though in TV, because it's 42 minutes, you don't always get that luxury of being able to sit in those moments. I just know that sometimes you've got to sort of move it along. So the fact that they were able to sort of stay with
there,
that was great, because it was written into the script. That he starts to speak, he can't speak, And you know, if you think about their relationship and the history, and hearing that news from his partner, and that she knows what had happened between them as well, so that he feels a sense of betrayal, and retraces the steps of everything, being the lawyer that he is, but also feel the hurt. I don't know. It was one of those things where it was fun to play as an actor, and I was just thrilled that they let the scene play out a little bit. They didn't just cut it really quickly.
No, yeah.
Which, you know, again, it happens sometimes. So I was thrilled to see that. So.
Well, and you talk about the Will and Alicia dynamic. I mean, it's more than sex, and it's more than this affair. There's like a deep mutual respect there too, and you do get a sense of the betrayal he's feeling, because like you feel like it seeping out from him, and we see it when he clears the desk. Talk about that moment, and how many takes did that one take?
Yeah, someone else has asked me that. I don't remember how many takes. I forget everything the next day after we shoot it. It's just the actor memory and TV, where you have to learn all this stuff, and then the next day you got to learn new stuff, so you just sort of get it into your brain and then lose it. But it wasn't a tremendous amount of takes. I know that. I mean, it was covered very sort of, you know, perfectly, I thought, and we didn't overcover it, and we you know, we really but I will say that what memories from that scene. I mean, a couple things. There was you know, Julianna was fixing up her character. Alicia, I should say, was not spending money redoing her office. And you know, it was a piece of information that Diane had gotten earlier, and then sort of asked me about it, or asked another character about it. And so it was, and I think she had asked Will about it earlier, and I don't think he made anything of it.
Yeah.
So then when he finds the information, he goes in there. I remember in the scene, like, you know, I don't think it was written into the scene, but there was, you know, her fabric swatches were there, and I remember just thinking all of that stuff that Diane had said to Will earlier came to him in that moment of like, and he's looking through them. It just felt really right. So things like that happen. I hurt my hand really bad hitting the desk, because it just sort of went too much too soon. And then, you know, I like iced my hand between
That's
takes.
why we felt it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, sometimes you just don't know, you know, and it happens. I'm usually pretty smart about that, but that happened, and that was that. But it was a great scene because it was so well written, and because of these characters' history, and because it's Julianna and I, and you know, she's just, her and Christina are just two of my favorite people to work with. I have most of my stuff with them, and I love working with her. You know, she's been a friend. She's the only person I knew on the show going in. There's such an ease and a rapport. I just feel like we have each other's backs. We get each other. We understand each other's rhythms. And there's just a friendship there that's personal as well as professional. And you know, and we both just came to that scene like ready. We knew it was intense, and we were ready to go. And you could feel it. There was definitely like an energy there that day. I
think I would have flinched knowing it was coming if I were her. Like, here he goes.
Yeah. There was a couple. Yeah, there was a couple moments. I think when we had to sort of first rehearse the swipe, and I know there was a couple times like I just kept missing, like I would swipe everything off except like two little things would remain completely in place. For some reason, like my hand just kept missing those things, and I was like, don't worry, when we shoot it, like they will be gone off the table. And I don't know if the one they use or not, but there was one time where I did a take and I swiped and I still missed them. And the athlete in me was like, God damn it, and I just went right again and just swiped him again and knocked him right off.
Now I'm going to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, I don't remember which one is used actually in the take. Funny. If it's just I got it the first time or I go back twice.
Well, and in the subsequent episodes, we see how it's like eating at him and how angry he is. And there's a point where she says, you need to get over it. You need to get over me. Talk about playing this back and forth where they're like going after the same clients, and he's very competitive. Like it seems like he hates her, and they have that scene in the diner where they have to sit by each other, and he's just like, I don't hate you, I'm just like really mad. And I also love the part where Grace calls, and he takes the call, and then he relays the message very sweetly,
no, I love that
even though
scene.
he's like really pissed.
That's what I meant about that script, and that's all there scripted so specifically that this intense drama, fast-moving episode where all the arcs finally come together and explode, and it's very satisfying. And then you have these great twists of humor in it, of like, he wants to kill her, but
Right.
yet there's still some dignity there, you know, about letting you know that your daughter called, and I loved it, and then to go right back to the other way. Playing all that was great because what it did was it just made it very active. You know, I mean, it was similar themes that we've explored in that relationship, and then suddenly you throw in the element of betrayal.
Betrayal, right.
And even though the relationship hasn't been, you know, as intimate of late, you know, there's still a lot of feelings there between the two of them. And I think when you throw in the factor of betrayal, it just opened up so many doors for Will to explore about what he wasn't exploring, maybe about his feelings with Alicia. And I think, you know, I always felt this reading, and I was like, well, you know, it's the kind of move that Will is a lawyer with some distance, you know, with something passing, with time passing, and you see a glimpse of it in the episode of the diner that you're talking about in a few words, but you where he could actually understand it. You know, he may still be mad about it, but right now I think in those episodes, sort of, you know, from 5 on, I don't think he was anywhere near the level of being able to sort of sit back and see it with a little more of an observing eye. I think he was too immersed in it, and there was a feeling of betrayal on a personal level and a professional level. And I thought they did a really nice job with the show of sort of showing a little bit more in those later episodes before Will dies, you know, of flashes of their relationship and how she came to be at this firm, and the sacrifices that he made, and because he believed in her, because what you said earlier, that there, you know, there's this love there, but there's also a real mutual respect about each other, about how they work. I think he admires how she thinks, and appreciated that. And I think so on so many levels, I think it rocked him, and you know, he came out swinging.
Well, you mentioned the way they like integrate the flashbacks, where like I remember there's the scene where they're in court and she's wearing what she wore the first time
they had sex,
and they keep replaying the moments.
Yeah.
How is that? Like, are you aware that they're going to integrate that? Like,
oh yeah, it's in the script. That's all in the script. Yeah, you're aware. I mean, it's, you know, it's great. It's I mean, it's a great thing for Alicia's character. You know, I mean, Will's sort of getting her off her game, and suddenly she just ups the ante and you know, makes his head spin, and then has that great line when he comes out after her, you know, and she, you know, he confronts her about it, and she just completely and leaves him kind of completely confused. So yeah, that was fun to play, because it was really rich. The character's sort of history, you know, is brought into all of it, and both of them, and it really, like I said, it was very active, and that was fun. Right. There's a lot of doing, you know.
Because as an actor, was it sort of fun playing him in this like intense state, this like where he's in this fury and this passion? For you going out, like playing him in this way,
it was fun, like I said, because it was very active stuff, but at the same time, you know, what was nice was that it had a little bit of balance of a moment here or there where you would see what was underneath the armor. And that's, I find, you know, look, as an actor, or anytime you play a character, I mean, characters are, I mean, we as people are so complex, and a lot of times what we say is not what we do, and vice versa. And so I think quite often, you know, you know, our 100th episode, don't ask me the title because I can't tell you right now. But there was a moment where, you know, we got to see a little bit of Will, see the hurt that was underneath all of that. And I like when you see that in characters for a brief glimpse, and then the wall goes back up. Because if you watch it all the way through, you get a sense of it. You know, you see this guy that you know is hurting, but he's not showing it. He's not acknowledging it. He would never allow himself to do that. And then you see that moment in that episode that I'm talking about where he's sort of contemplating, you know, cross-examining her tomorrow, and all his memories are flooding up, and you feel the real sadness there and the rawness of his emotion, and you feel how much he loves her, and how underneath all of this and this anger and this rage, there's just a lot of hurt. And then he immediately puts it back on, puts the mask back on, goes back. I like when you just see little glimpses of it, and I think the Kings are really good at doing that, and it's fun to experience, like the sort of, you know, the truth of a character in those little moments.
Well, we also mentioned Diane, because she's the other woman in your life, and this season in particular, there was a lot. You know, it was a fractured relationship. Like they were sort of at odds. He was also feeling a certain way about her and her decisions. Talk a little bit about playing that out too.
Yeah, you know, it was great for Christine and I think she's done such fantastic work on the show this year. I really felt like the writing for Will and Diane was fantastic, and she, look, I only knew Julianna coming into the show, and I've met so many great people on the show between the entire cast, the crew. But I would be lying if I said that outside of Julianna, that Christine is not just one of my favorite people I've ever worked with in the business. I mean, I absolutely adore her. I love her. I think our relationship and how well we get along personally really sort of just helped us play those characters so well, and I think informed the writers, if I can be daring enough to say that, with just watching, that there's such love between us, and a sense of humor and a sense of playfulness, and just a deep bond. So it was I enjoyed where we had to go this year. Anytime you get to dig deeper with her and see the work she was doing this year was fantastic. I love the woman.
How about going into making this decision of it's time for me to move on? I mean, when people are contemplating life decisions, they're playing it out, and a lot of times they don't go through with it.
Yeah.
Do you remember like where you were, like when it finally clicked for you, where okay, I am going to go through with it. I'm going to make the call.
Well, look, I think to just look, the show has been so amazing to me. Like, I feel so lucky to have had the experience. I had a very short-term contract on the show, much shorter than it's even been discussed in the press. I kept extending it because I love the show so much. I enjoyed it. It's been a great job for me. I'm lucky. I've gotten to stay in New York, working with great writers and great crew. Really good cast of actors and wonderful people, and I kept extending it because of that. When the opportunity came in year 4 to extend it another few years, I thought a long time about it, and just felt that at that point in time that I was really I was ready to experience new characters and play new characters. And I'm really happy that through that decision, through talking to Julianna, through talking to Robert and Michelle, my agents and everybody, just sort of feeling it out that, listen, I wanted to move on, but I never wanted the show that's been so good to me. I wanted to make sure that I left it in as good a spot as I could. I didn't want to leave them hanging and sort of have them have to write it very quickly in the 4th season. So I was always willing to want to come back and do some this year, whatever would work. And through this sort of discussion, we came up with, what about doing a little bit more than just 4 or 5, doing these 15, being able to give the character a more proper goodbye and really write something special for him. And that was just too good to be true, to be able to come back this year, direct a few more episodes, do these 15, and then 16, and it was great for me. The decision was not one that came easy, and I think I very much could have stayed on the show for 2 more years, and I wouldn't have had any problem with that, and nobody else would have. But it's a hard thing to sometimes articulate when you feel like you want to just have new experiences, and it's really not it's not any way a reflection on how I feel about the show. It's more for me and my journey and my life as an actor, and also personally, the things I want to do. I think a network schedule is a very difficult schedule. Are there harder jobs in the world? Sure, of course. I mean, we're talking about the entertainment business here. I'm gonna let's be real. But it is. With that said, the hours are very brutal. And it's not a cable show where you're doing 8 to 13 a year. You're making 22 episodes a year. You're working 9+ months a year. And you're working long hours where you're seeing people on the set more than you're seeing your family. And doing that, sometimes it doesn't allow you to really have other experiences. So honestly, if The Good Wife was made 10 episodes a year or 13 episodes, maybe I would have stayed, because I could have had more time to explore other projects that I'm interested in, spend time with my wife,
right?
But those are all the things that go into it. But you know what? When I make a decision, I usually I don't make quick decisions. I mean, I trust my instincts. I trust the people around me that I respect, my close friends, my family, my agent, people that I really admire. I really do. I mean, I have a good group of people around me. And I ask them their opinions. I talk to people that will give me the straight. And I thought about it myself. And I just knew. I knew. When you know. And so people that have asked me, well, because this year has gone so well, did you regret it? I didn't, because, who's to say why things happen, but, what order they happen in. All I know is we had a great year. had a great run on the show. The fact that we all agreed to do this half a year for me was extra special because I went in knowing it was all the last. And I feel like we had such a great year on the show, and it was while the character's death was tragic and sudden and shocking, I feel like we went out, in a really good way, and I feel that I can leave the show feeling really proud of all these years of work and the relationships I've made on that show.
Did you go in knowing that your end would be death, or had that come later?
I knew before we finished last season, before the fourth season. When the decision was made and we hammered out the deal and figured out how many we would do and this and this and that, Robert King was in town directing the finale of season 4. So we were discussing a lot about what would happen and how he would do it. And he said, I think it's going to be a death, How do you feel about that? And I said, I feel good about it. I mean, I think, what are your options, really?
Right.
Will leaves. I mean, he's talked about this in the press. He leaves, and then you do X, Y, and Z, and then he's always kind of still hovering, maybe.
It needed to be final. Yeah.
I think where they thought the possibilities that could lead the show, and particularly Alicia, was too good. Too good dramatically, I should say. So I supported it. And always told them, because they do this as years go on, as they're writing and things shift. If if I'm available and you want me to do 1 or 2 more, like we'll stay in touch. And that's how 16 came about. They were in the writers' room and said, you asked us, if
we need you back,
and now I'm telling you, like, we really feel like we could use you in this episode, and
Was that weird to do like 15, you're dead, and then to come back?
No, because it actually made 15 easier because I knew I was doing these extra few days on 16. So in a way, my real memories of my last moments are doing the last scene of 16.
Okay, so
which actually is better, in a way.
Diane.
No, I mean those were very hard days. Harder for the women, obviously, than me. I just had to lay there and be dead, just pretend not to, breathe, which is hard enough, but they really had it hard. And and I just had to, just be serious and sort of quiet and shut up, which, as you can tell, is hard for me.
Wake up and scare them randomly?
No, I never did that. No, God, no, because emotionally they had to be in such raw places. But no, so it helped with that. And 16, the final moment of 16, the last call, when Alicia's imagining, she's hugging Peter and she's imagining what Will might have said.
We have so many questions about that call.
Well, that was the last thing that I ever really shot on the show. So that was probably the hardest thing for me to shoot, much more than any of the stuff in 15, because that's all very technical, and I knew it was coming for so long that I had sort of it was harder for me, for crew that wasn't aware of it until they had read the script, to have to deal with them, because they were then processing it. For me, it was a little easier. But 16 in that moment was tough. Emotionally, just so much stuff came up because, you have this incredible time and feel so blessed, and I knew then that it was really over, and it was very hard to get through that phone call. I just getting flooded with emotions, just going into the corner in between each take and trying to keep myself calm, because I was getting a little overwhelmed by it, because I knew it was the end, and then all of a sudden I was just reflecting on all the great times, and and felt, like I said, just really, really proud and so blessed to have worked with these people for so long.
We had one commenter asked if you knew what he intended to tell her on that call. If Peter or Michelle gave you any insight. You don't want to tell us.
No, but it's also, but I remember, I think the whole point of that is that that's Alicia's thoughts.
Yeah.
So, the whole narrative had been set up, that episode, of her having a kind of butt dial from Will and trying to think about why he was calling her. And as she sort of navigates that, it deals in these really beautiful ways with grief and how we grieve and how things happen when people die, and things aren't always sort of finished between you, or you don't always get that. In fact, I just ran into a friend the other day who said, a friend of theirs had died, and it was a good friend of mine, and that I didn't know they had had a fight before, and she never really, that was how their relationship ended, and then he died a few years later, and that was tough for her, and I think, so here's Alicia wondering, knowing that all this stuff's gone down between them, but that narrative that's set up through the episode, it's her POV, it's her memory, it's her wishes, her fears, whatever it is. So it's not Will. So to answer what Will said, you'd have to ask,
Robert M. Michelle.
You'd have to ask them.
Well, I have to say, this is the one show that I drive about 20 minutes to my parents' house to watch with my mother. And so when the death happens, I'm not kidding you, I turn and my mom is like this, and she has paused it because she's like, no, this did not just, she's like, we had to take like a 10-minute break.
Oh my
like,
God,
she was like, what
just
just happened? Like, this isn't true. Like, this is not happening.
Yeah.
This is like a dream. And so shout out to my mom.
Shout out. What's your mom's name?
Maria.
Maria. No, I'm sorry. I love you.
She wanted to know.
I'm still alive. Josh,
still alive.
not Will, but Josh. Sorry. Love you.
She wanted to know how you felt about how things ended with Alicia, like where they left things.
Yeah.
If you wish it could have ended differently. For
no,
them.
I think that's part of the intent, you know. So, I remember sort of reading the episode and the script at the diner and that scene that you talked about, and to be frank, you wanted more out of that scene, but in a way that's intentional. I think
it's real life.
You kind of, you see the ice thaw a little bit, and so maybe you get a hint that things could one day improve, and then they don't, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you. I think that happens in life. I think so. I don't know. I was always drawn. Maybe it's just the dark part of my personality to the tragic element of their relationship, because we've seen the other stuff done a lot, and I think that the idea of two people who do really feel a connection and a bond, but for all these different reasons is off. I always responded to that element. So I never really knew, and to be frank, I never really talked with Robert and Michelle about what they ever thought their end game was with those two characters in particular. My feeling, my own opinion, it was that I don't know that it ever was the end game. I think there was always going to be something between them, a connection. So in a way, I don't know. Your mom, she wanted to know how I felt. I felt like the ending, like you got a sense, I think, from that episode, a few words that, you know what, they were going to find a sort of mutual respect again, and it was going to happen. Because, like I said, with time and distance and healing, and Will could sort of take his emotions out of it, he could look at the move and maybe go, you know what, maybe I would have done something similar, maybe I would have done it differently, but he could separate the business from the personal.
Right. Because we also see, like, in past episodes, in past seasons, how much he's in awe of her sometimes when she takes control, when she does things that, are for her, and, so I think he would have eventually come to terms with it.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How important for you was it that Robert and Michelle write your final episode? Or
well, I guess I just assumed they would, because I guess I felt like it was an important enough episode, and they write a fair amount of them. I mean, they write all of them, but I mean, ones where they really
get on
put their names on it. I was, I expected it. So I was interested to see what we did with it. It was. I mean, I always look forward to, scripts that they have their names on, just because, we have such an incredible writing staff on it. But, it's their show, and so it's nice to see the ones that hitting the fan, our 100th episode, that one. And then even 16, which I think is a really beautiful, beautiful script. Really well written moments in that script that I just thought, got me on the page, just worked up and crying, David Lee. I mean, that's an incredible. Think about that. That's like a beautifully written moment, and it's beautifully performed by Zach. I mean, I immediately texted him after I saw it, because it's just so, the way he performs that moment. I mean, how the writers do it. That's a great combination of, like, great writing and a great actor. And you watch that, because I have the privilege of reading it and then also seeing how Zach performs it. So the guy is stone-faced, hearing the news, walks in, kicks the people out of the room. It's all in the script, sort of stifles a... But the way Zach did it, and what he brought his own artistry to it, was just so beautiful, because it was almost like he pushed the emotion back down and said that's who that character is. He would never allow himself to feel anything for that long of a period of time that would make him uncomfortable. And he just kind of, like, stuffed it back in. I remember just finding that such a beautiful piece of acting.
Well, and it wasn't even like an ugly cry, which is like a hard thing not to do.
No,
it was a good,
it was a very
manly,
specific kind of just. But it was like he felt it, and then it was back in, and now I'm back to who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes back to what we said before about I love being able to play a little moment of that this year for Will, where you see what's underneath, and then it goes back. So it's nice. You get a glimpse of it, and suddenly, God, you see that character in a slightly different way because you see inside of him a little bit more for a moment. Because that's a pretty tough character all the time, David. You know, he's a
hard ass.
Yeah.
How did you feel about how they played out the death scene? We don't see him getting shot. We don't see him taking his last breath. We see Kalinda and Diane being the ones that are there for, you know, when they, well, Kalinda's there to see him in the courtroom, but then they're in the hospital with him. How did you like how this played out? Are you glad it wasn't like Alicia's character?
Well, I mean, it was never Alicia's character in the script. I mean, look, I like how it played out because I always think less is more and leave it more to your imagination.
And you didn't have to do like a fake dying.
No, but we did. I mean, the reality is that we did shoot all that in the script, and I think when they were editing it, I think they realized, you know, they chose this route. You know, so yeah, had I wished they chose this route before we shot it so we didn't have to shoot all that stuff, of course. I mean, I think all of us did. You asked the director, we would all say we would rather not have shot all of that. But I also think they needed to go through it and see it because, you know, it's not normally what our show does. We're not that kind of show. And so I think in context with our show and also just the power of it emotionally, if we're looking at it through the other characters' point of view and through their eyes, we don't see anything. So when things are left more with sound and glimpses and a shoe and, you know, a foot, and then when we reveal it, I think it was much more I don't say satisfying, much more powerful for the audience than if you see everything. I also think, honestly, it really helped the next episode.
Right.
Because that episode was so much about Alicia trying to figure it out, and she goes to see the judge, and he takes her to the thing. So had we seen all of that already, the fact that we hadn't, we're still kind of now with Alicia trying to see it through her eyes. So I much preferred it the way that it was, and I think they made the right choice. You know,
looking back on the season, what would you say was like the most I don't know, like torturous or difficult to get through scene with Alicia or with any of the characters for your character? What was the hardest for you to go through?
There was a couple moments. One I mentioned earlier, which was, you know, the moment in 16, that when I knew that was really my last moment. Now, I knew I was coming back in a few weeks to start directing episode 19, but still, I knew that I was saying goodbye to a large, you know, part of my life, the longest job I've ever had, you know, one of the best jobs I've ever had. So that was difficult. That was very emotional. Saying goodbye to Christine, you know, in my dressing room was a very emotional moment. I don't remember if it was that day. I think it was maybe another day. But that was a very, you know, that was a moment I always remember because, you know, you just build these relationships, and that was tough. I'm trying to think anything other scene-wise. I think what I would take most is the saying goodbye to people. You know, that was hard. Even though I knew I was coming back, directing and seeing people, you know, I just knew on a daily basis I wasn't going to be seeing all these people. So I feel like there was moments along the way each year with the people that knew sooner or later where I got to have those moments with people, and those are the things that I'll cherish because you know, like anyone will tell you, it's the best thing of TV. I mean, even though I've criticized how long the schedule can be and that it's not necessarily humane on some way, you know, the best thing is, unlike the other mediums of film and theater, you work so intimately for so long with people that you build really, really intense relationships. So, you know, moments of just having those goodbyes with the people, the crew that I really love on that show, that's what I'll take with me.
Well, with the season on like all cylinders, like should you get nominated, which do you submit for yourself? They were like, there's so many good ones.
I have no idea. I don't know. You know, I mean, let's just see if that happens. I'll deal with that then. I don't really, you know.
Consult with me and my mother.
I'll consult with you. I will consult with you and your mother, no doubt, if that happens.
Do you think you'd do TV again?
Oh, absolutely. I love TV. I absolutely want to do TV again. I mean, TV's been fantastic to me. I mean, all my best jobs have come from television. I love it. I've gotten to play a, you know, great different group of characters. I love the form. I love the structure. I like, you know, knowing that you're working, and I love the building a character over a long period of time is really challenging and fun and has its rewards. I just think that you know, the likelihood of me doing a network schedule is probably less likely than doing something on, you know, that makes 8 to 13 a year. I think because I want to be able to do other things throughout the year, even if all those other things mean just spending time with my family.
That's sweet. Would you do comedy again?
Love to.
You were great on Amy
Love
Schumer.
to. Oh, I love it. Yeah, Amy.
I'll never go through a drive-through again thinking it was so bizarre.
That's been amazing. I mean, working with her has been great. I had so much fun this year. I mean, the second one we did, you know, I put frosted tips in my hair as the newscaster. We had so much fun on the food room. I love her. I think that show is just so fresh and so well written, and she's just genius. And I love doing that. So I hope to do more stuff like that and do more comedy. I do love comedy. And I also just think, you know, part of doing that is fun because of her, but it's also just, you know, you've got to remind people consistently in your career. I think people just sort of always look at what's in front of them and what you just did last, and that's kind of how they sometimes tend to think of you. So the more you can kind of just, I don't know, show that you like to do other stuff and do other stuff, it's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you have coming next.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was great talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
Guys, if you want to check out more of our chats, go to latimes.com. He's alive.
Bye, Mom. Sorry.